Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. On this episode, I have created a tutorial using the items that I got from NBeads, and this is what I have come up with. It's rather on the fancy side because I have problems with minimalism. So, this nice little regal royal pendenty thing, using all of these beads, and it might look a little funky because I have a grow light on, and it's very bright and purple. So if you kind of compare with everything that I've got, this probably cost me about $15 in supplies, which is ridiculously cheap. Yes, it's very fancy, it's very regal, you can still customize it, because you can go all the way with this, or you can stop at certain points. And yes, so I really am thrilled with the way this turned out. I will leave links down below to NBeads in case you wanted to get the exact materials that I got to follow along with. But I will give general sizes and things of what I'm working with. For this project, you will need an 18 by 25 millimeter Oval Cabochon. This is a Dragon's Vein agate. I've got the other one right here. So that is generally the good shape that you would use for this. You'll need two 10 millimeter chatons, or Rivolis, or bezel, or not bezels, flatbacks, rhinestones, things that'll work. These are cubic zirconias that are really pretty and shiny that I decided to use with that. You will need an assortment of rondelles. You will need about 60 of these super teeny tiny 2 by 3 millimeter rondelles. You will need 20 of the next size up, the 4 by 3 millimeters. And you'll need 21 4 by 5 millimeters. You will also need 4 4 millimeter bicones, 9 dangly drops, 10 grams of size 11 seed beads at least. I got the little Toho packs of 10 grams and I pretty much used all of it, so I would probably get a second pack just to be safe. You will also need 2 colors of size 15 seed beads, a clasp of your choice, and of course a needle and thread. I'm using a size 12 needle along with this Hercules thread that I am quite enjoying at the moment. So all of these except for the thread, needles, and the size 15s I got at NBeads. So as you can see, there's quite a lot you can do for quite a cheap price. And with all that being said, let us get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is bezel our cabochons, and that's going to start off with a right angle weave and evolve into some peyote stitch. So, I'm going to work with my size 11 seed beads and my tiny rondelles. What's interesting about these is you can pretty much replace these in place of any seed bead, size 11 seed bead that you want, because they're really shiny and sparkly, and it adds a little bit more to your project. So I am going to start by adding 3 of my size 11 seed beads and 1 shiny rondelle. Pull it all the way down, pass back through till I form a loop. And then you're going to tie an overhand knot using the tail and the working thread. So we're going to continue our right angle weave. What we want is all of our rondelles to be on the same side, and we're going to want it to be on the sides. Therefore, we're going to extend our chain this way. So I'm going to pass through the next bead. I am going to add 3 more seed beads and pass back through the size 11 bead that we started from to form a loop. I'm going to reinforce and move to the next stitch all the way to the end. For my next stitch, I'm going to be kind of careful with how I orient things. I want all of my crystals in the same side of everything. And because of the way my thread is at, I'm going to add my crystal, then 2 seed beads, and pass back through the next seed bead, so that the 2 rondelles are the same size. Reinforce that one. Then I'm going to end up here. I'm going to add 3 seed beads, reinforce, add another crystal section all the way down until I have used 12 crystals. And I'm going to stop at the crystal stitch because we're going to do something else to join it together. For the 18 by 25 cabochon, you're going to use 12 of these, but for the 10 millimeter cabochons, you're only going to use 6. So keep that in mind if you want to do them all at once. We're going to do 6 sets, and then we're going to join everything all together. So here is your strip with 12 of the crystals. You start with a crystal on one end, you end up with a crystal on the other end. We're going to join them together so that the 2 seed beads are next up to each other. Going to add 1 seed bead and pass through the opposite. This is my working thread here. This is my tail end. I'm just going to pass through the opposite seed bead, add 1 more seed bead, then pass through the bead that you started from to form a seamless right angle weave stitch. Then you're going to reinforce it, and we're going to move to the bottom beads because we're going to work on the back of the bezel first. And you're going to do the same thing with your small bezels with the 10 millimeter rhinestones to join those together into rings. So we're going to start on the bottom band, which is opposite of the crystals, and we're going to start to cinch together the back of the bezel. All we're going to do is we're going to take 1 size 15. I'm using a color B, you don't have to, and passing through to the next bead to start cinching it together. That was a size 15. Now I'm going to start with a size 11. Pass that through to the next bead. Size 15. Jump to the next bead. Size 11. Jump to the next bead, and so forth all the way around. For the 10 millimeter bezels, you're going to again work on the back side opposite of the crystals, and you're just going to add a size 15, go through the next bead, and just use 15s all the way around. You can alternate A and B colors if you'd like, but it's not necessary. So do that with all 3 of your pieces. Alright, so with your big ring completed, I'm coming out of a size 11 on the lower branch. What we're going to do is step up to the size 15 next over, and we're going to work on another row of peyote. This time, I'm just going to use color A size 15s, and I'm going to, since I'm coming out of a 15, I'm going to pick up the 11. From an 11, I'm going to dig down and pick up that 15, and we're just going to go all the way around and then reinforce it to tighten the gaps. You don't need any more rows on your 10 millimeter bezel, but you may want to reinforce it once or twice to make sure everything is nice and cinched. So for our next row, we have finished our back side. We are going to move all the way up to the pointy, sticky outy points on the opposite row where the crystals are. All we are going to do for this row on the large one is just shove size 11s in between each one of these beads. So just size 11s, I went through a crystal, now I'm going through a size 11, got a size 11 going through a crystal, all the way around. And that's your next row for the big one. For the small one, you're going to actually want to put your rhinestone inside there, and we are going to put size 15s in between each of these gaps. So I'm coming out of a size 11, I'm going to thread through the crystal, size 15 going through the size 11, so forth all the way around, and you'll want to reinforce that. Then there's only one more row on the small bezel. What you're going to do is step up to the next size 15, add on 1 size 15, then pass through the next size 15 on the bezel and reinforce, and that will finish the base bezel of the 2 small bezels. We still have a little bit more work on the larger bezel. Alright, so now you're on your next row for the large bezel. all we're going to do is step up the highest, size 11. Then we're going to add a size 15, move across the crystal, put that in between, add your color B, move across to the next size 11, and keep going like that, alternating the beads. You'll basically want your color A on top of the crystals, your color B on top of the size 11s in between. Then, once you've finished that, you're going to step up once more and add only color A size 15s all the way around. You're going to sandwich them in between the two size 15s. Then you may want to reinforce after that to make everything nice and secure. Be sure you include your stone before you cinch everything together. Alright, so now we're going to start the initial phases of the decoration. Alright, so you'll want to move over generally towards the top of your bezel. Doesn't matter too much because the stone is going to... the stone's pretty loose in here, so you can twist it to whichever direction you need. And in the right angle weave, we are going to be using the crystals primarily for decoration. We are basically going to use the right angle weave on the bezel. We're going to use the crystal and the opposite side to attach our most prominent items. I have added a size 11, my largest rondelle, and a size 11, and I'm going to pass all the way through to the next crystal rondelle on the bezel, so that it sits nicely on top. Then, using the right angle weave, I'm going to twist back to this side here on the back of the bezel. So I just go through 1, and then 2, to change direction and wrap around the other side. I am going to add one more size 11, pass through the rondelle, so that we start to form a base around the rondelle. I'm going to add one more size 11 and pass through the opposite size 11 from the crystal that we started from. And that will be our finished side. I am actually going to move my stone so that this crystal is towards the left side of this, because we're not going to be adding the same size rondelles all over. So now I'm towards the back side of our bezel. I'm going to add another size 11, my largest rondelle, size 11. I'm going to skip over the next bead and move to the one after, the one that is right beside a crystal rondelle. I'm going to then use the right angle weave to move to the crystal. So I'll go through 1, then the crystal, add 1 size 11, go through the rondelle, add 1 more size 11, then go through the previous crystal on the previous stitch, so that we've attached these two together. Now I'm going to change direction so that I end up on the opposite side of the second crystal. So I'm just going to go up the size 11 next to the first crystal. Then I'm going to flip it over, go down the next size 11. Then I'm going to pick up the size 11 underneath, that's between the two. Go up the next size 11. Through the rondelle. From here, you can choose which bead you go down, and to make it easier for me, I'm going to go near the crystal rondelle. So I'm just going to go down where the front is, then finally through the crystal we want to be at. I'm going to show you how to do that once more. So starting from this crystal, I'm going to add a size 11, my largest crystal, a size 11. Skip over to the next crystal to start to anchor that down. I'm going to use the right angle weave to move backward, then through the size 11 on the back of the bezel that we want to be out of. Add one size 11, pass through the large rondelle. Another size 11, then pass through the size 11 underneath. Then go to the size 11 that's across away from the crystal that you started from. You'll notice that this seed bead is on top of the previous stitch. You can kind of use that as a guideline. So I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to go up the side seed bead from the previous stitch. Go down seed bead on the same side. I'm going to go through the crystal, up the size 11, through the rondelle, and I'm going to go through the size 11 seed bead nearest the crystal just to make it easier for myself. Now, the next stitch, since we've done 3, is going to be exactly the same. We're just using different sizes of rondelles. So coming out of the crystal here, we're going to repeat the same steps, except we're going to add a size 11, a medium size rondelle, and a size 11. So we're going to repeat that, skipping over to the next rondelle on the bezel, and you'll repeat the same steps to attach seed beads on the opposite side and move on. You're going to want to have 3 on the top of the largest size, 3 on the side of the medium size, 3 on the bottom of the largest size, and 3 of the medium on 3, 3, 3, and 3. As you can see on here, we've got the prominent ones being the largest one. I have 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom, and 3 of the small ones on the side. For the small round ones, you're going to repeat the exact same steps. However, you're just going to alternate large and medium all the way around. You should have 6 beads total. You will have large, medium, large, medium, large, medium all the way around. So do that for all 3 of your stones, and we'll start connecting them together into one congruent piece. Alright, now that we have all 3 of our pieces made up, we've got 6 little rondelles, we've got 12 rondelles on here. We are going to join these pieces together. So, I've got my little piece, and I've got a thread coming out of one of the medium-sized rondelles. We are going to push it against 2, right in between 2 of the medium rondelles on the larger piece. And my thread is going up, so I'm going to pass up through that rondelle there to begin my attachment. I am then going to add one 4mm bicone, and I am going to pass up through the seed bead next to the next most large rondelle. I'm going to pull that through so that it wedges those 2 together. I'm going to flip my piece over, then I'm going to go down the next size 11, right next to the rondelle, pass back through that 4mm bicone, pull everything tight, then I'm going to pass through the first medium rondelle on the large piece, go back through the medium rondelle on the small piece, and then pick up the next medium rondelle on the large piece. Then I'm going to add a second 4mm bicone and do the same thing that you did on the other side. So you go up the size 11 next to the large bicone on the small piece, flip it over and go through the next size 11, back through the bicone, and back through the medium rondelle on the other side. You're going to want to reinforce this by passing back through several times so that everything cinches tightly together. You kind of see how the middle rondelle wants to pull away. You're going to reinforce it until everything cinches together, and then you'll repeat on the opposite side, and then after that we're going to work on the next phase of accents. Alright, and that's what we are looking at once we have everything attached. You could just leave it like this and add a chain to each side just to make it, it looks really cool like this, but we're going to add some extra details and make it look even more extra. So I am starting off coming out of the size 11 seed bead that is next to my first largest rondelle on my little section here. So I am going to add 3 size 15s, one of my tiniest rondelles, the 2 by 3 millimeter, and 3 size 15s, and I'm going to pass through the size 11 on the opposite side. Now to make life easier, I'm going to stay on the same side as my first bead, and I jump across the size 11 that is immediately over. Then I'm going to flip my piece over and go up through the size 11 bead that's across the way. Then in order to center this in between on our rondelle, I'm just going to pass back through the 3 size 15s, skip over the rondelle, pass through the next set of 3 size 15s, so the point pops. I'm going to go through the size 11 that we haven't been through yet. I'm going to push my needle underneath the piece, not picking up any beads so that I'm on the other side. Then I'm going to go up the size 11, opposite. And to make life a little bit easier for me, I'm just going to travel through the rondelle and pass down through the next size 11 seed bead. I'm going to then use the right angle weave to catch the bead right back on the bezel. Then go up through the next size 11 along the path. This will be right next to a medium-sized rondelle. I'm going to then add 3 size 11 seed beads and pass back down through the size 11 on the previous rondelle. I'm going to then pass my needle through the beadwork again so that I can pick up the size 11 across that same rondelle. Then I'm going to pick up one of my size 11s on that 3, skip over the center one, and pass through the next size 11. So that this point pops, and then I'm going to pass through the size 11 on the next rondelle, the one that we started at. From here, I'm going to pass my needle underneath the beadwork and go up the size 11 that is right next to the rondelle. I'm going to repeat the same steps, except I'm just going to be using 2 size 15s and 1 small rondelle, and then 2 size 15s, and pass it to the next size 11. You will repeat those same steps to add the little anchor points on the top, and then you'll move over to add the 3 size 11s and keep going all the way around until you reach the 4mm bicone, and that way we're going to move over to transition to the larger piece. Alright, so when you reach a 4mm bicone, right here I am at the rondelle. I'm going to add 3 size 11s and go down across the way to the size 11 that is beneath the 4mm bead. I'm going to pass my needle through the work so that I end up in the opposite side. Go up through the other size 11 next to that bicone bead. Pop your point of the 3 size 11s. Then go down the size 11 that is right next to the medium-sized rondelle. Then I'm going to pass my needle through the work again, go up through the size 11 on the opposite side on the front of the bezel, go down 1, then I'm going to go up the size 11 right next to the bicone. Then I'm going to add 3 size 15s, the smallest rondelle, 3 size 15s, go down the size 11 across the way from the bicone, and basically repeat the same steps to anchor this in place. I'm going to pass my needle through to the other side, flip my piece over, go up through the size 11, pick up 3 size 15s, skip over the center rondelle, and pick up the next set of size 15s, pass down through the opposite side of the bead you started from. We started on that side, now we're moving down here. I'm going to pass my needle back through the work underneath the bicone. I'm going to cheat a little bit by passing through the bicone itself. From there, I'm going to go up the size 11 seed bead next to our largest rondelle, and just repeat like normal, adding 3 size 15s, a rondelle, 3 size 15s, going down through the next, passing through, going up the opposite side, pop the point of the rondelle by passing through 3 size 15s, skipping the rondelle, and going down 3 size 15s. Gonna flip our piece over and go down the size 11 next to the large rondelle. And from here, we're going to continue on wrapping the rest of the rondelles. And you repeat those steps on all 4 points to join them together. Don't worry too much about positioning and where things are going. And ultimately, if you get lost or confused about how to do these, if it looks the same, it's just fine. It's gonna look, if you find other ways of going through thread pathways that are more efficient for you, feel free. Our only goals right here is to put the picots on top of each of the rondelles and put a picot of 3 size 11s in between them. So if you find another way to do it that works better for you, feel free to do that. That is, it doesn't hold too much overall structure, and there's only going to be one more layer around, which is going to make a big ruffly effect. So, venture forth and continue until you have all the picots created. Alright, and this is what your piece should look like at this point. Once again, you can probably leave it like this if you don't want to go any further, but we're going to do some fanciful things to make it look more rounded. You're going to want to start with your needle coming out of a Crystal Rondelle at this point. You're going to add a size 15, a size 11, a size 15, and pass through the next size 11 bead on the seed bead picots between the rondelles, so that they cinch together like that. And you're just going to keep doing that all the way around. So I have my seed beads. I'm going to pass through the next rondelle along the row. Now, since we're getting to the tight corners around where the bicone is, use your best judgment as to where you want it to go. Personally, I just added my seed beads and skipped all the way over to the rondelle on top of the largest rondelle on the large piece. Like that. And you'll just repeat that going all the way around. And we'll be done with the main pendant, and we'll look at adding some details later. Alright, now that you have your piece set up, we're going to be working on the fringe. So, we are going to attach 7 pieces, each on one of these little rondelles that are on the outside of the perimeter. We're going to add 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So, I've got my thread coming out of the first rondelle that we're going to be using, and we're going to have the fringe in the double diamond right angle weave. Done a lot of videos on this, but here's a little bit of a refresher. I'm going to add 7 size 15s. If you feel like it, you can also use size 11s, but I like how dainty the 15s look, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to pass back through that rondelle. Then we're going to pop some points. So I'm going to pass through bead number 1, skip over bead number 2, and pass through bead number 3. We're going to rotate that, make sure bead number 2 pops out, skip over bead number 4, go through bead number 5, flip that over, skip bead number 6, pass through bead number 7, and back to the rondelle that we started from. Then I'm going to make my way over to the point at the tip, add another 7 beads, pass back through the bead that you started from on the tip, and repeat those steps using this size 15 at the tip of the previous stitch instead of the rondelle. Now, it depends on how long you want them. I'm using only 2 additional stitches before I get to my drop. Feel free to add more or less, depending on what the look you are going for. So, add 2 more stitches and then we'll work on the drop. Alright, that is our piece of fringe. We're not going to add a drop to finish the cute pattern or what have you. So feel free to switch whatever design that you want, but I have added a size 15, my smallest rondelle, my largest rondelle, my drop bead, and a size 11 seed bead. You can do whatever you want. And yes, so I'm going to pass that down. I'm going to skip over the size 11 and pass back through my accent beads, which is the drop and the 2 rondelles. I'm going to pull that tight. Add on 1 more size 15, then pass back through the opposite side of the bead that we started from. You're going to reinforce that, and you will have completed this drop. Going to move over to the next rondelle on the pattern, repeat the same steps, move all the way down, repeat the same steps, and keep going. It's up to you how you want to do this. You can either travel back up the stitches and go all the way through, or you can just end your threads and attach new ones right by the rondelle that you want to go. So once that is done, we are going to work on attaching the straps and finishing our piece. Alright, so now that we've got our little fringy bits, I have continued on to start the clasp and the necklace chain. So from the last fringe that I made, I moved up to the next crystal, and I added 5 stitches of double diamond right angle weave, this time with size 11s. Feel free to use size 15s if you like, but I kind of like the balance of the 11s, so that's what I used. And then I moved over and added another set of 5 stitches with the next crystal over. Now we're going to join those together. Now we're going to attach our transition section, which is kind of like the fringe bits. I've added a size 15, a drop, a large rondelle, and a small rondelle, and a size 11. Feel free to orient the accent beads however you want. Going to pass back down all of the accent beads, skipping the size 11, pulling it down, adding another size 15, and passing back through the size 11 bead that we started from. Going to go back up and down, stopping at my teardrop. Then from here, I'm going to pass through the size 15 that is closest to the second strap, so it's towards the center. I'm going to pass that through. Then I'm going to pass through the tip of the second strap, pull that together, add on 1 size 15, and pass back through my accent bead, pulling that tight to complete your transition. You can reinforce however you want, especially to secure the size 15s. Once you move back up to the top of your size 11 seed bead at the end, you're going to continue on with double diamond right angle weave. So I add my 7, skip all of my beads that I need to, move up to the top, and continue on to make a completed chain. When you reach the end of your chain, if you have a clasp that has a large section, you're just going to add your 7 size 11 beads and then add this as well before doing your loop and your passes. If your clasp has a large segment and can take up enough space for a bead and the beads can't pass through, what you'll want to do is add on 3 size 11s, add on your clasp, and 3 size 11s, and pass on through there. Your clasp will be one of the skipped points on the chain. And then you will have your finished piece. I really enjoyed how this turned out. In my personal opinion, I think it looks much better with metallic beads, so try something in silvers, regular gold, what have you. It looks really real, and I just am really thrilled with how it turned out. And because of the materials I used, it cost me about $10-15 to make, which is awesome. This was made using the beads that NBeads has provided, so I can provide a link. Check down in the description box below for the link to where I got these materials. And feel free to share what you make on our Facebook group at Creations from Lessons with Odin. I really want to see what you have done with this piece, all those zero color combinations and variations. I want to see what you come up with. And I think that will do it from me. Be sure to like up this video and subscribe if you want to see more bullshit from me. Check me out all over the interwebs and come say hi on my social medias. And thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon. Your support is fantastic, and I appreciate each and every one of you, and you really help me out. If you would also like to be a part of the Patreon community and get exclusive jewelry making tutorials once a month, feel free to check out my Patreon page down below, patreon.com/odins.musings. The next February design has been revealed. It's one of my old Skillshare classes, and this one was very popular. It's the reversible box bracelet. I will add a picture right here. So if you want to join us for that, come and check out the links down below. And thank y'all so much for joining me. And of course, if there's anything I need to be trying out right now, feel free to let me know down below. And I will see you next time.